dry runs and previews. That's on the menu for today. So I'm sure you've run some commands in the past that have some type of side effect or destructive action. And it's really nice when tools offer the capability to show you a preview of maybe some config file that it's parsing or whatever it happens to be doing, as well as a dry run so you can see what it's going to do before it actually happens. So in this video, we're going to go over a couple of different examples for a few different tools. Of course, we can't go through all of them, but one of them that comes to mind when it comes to previewing stuff is Docker Compose. So for example, we have this compose.yaml file, and it's not really important if you don't know what Docker is, but yeah, this is a YAML file. We're using some features from YAML like aliases and anchors. There's variable interpolation happening from Docker Compose. We can see also we're loading in environment variables from a file, and we're also using the shorthand volume syntax because it's convenient to type for this type of use case here. But if you're trying to troubleshoot something with Docker Compose, maybe it's not working the way that you think, this config command here is super nice to give you a preview of how Docker Compose is going to be parsing that file. So we can see here, all these different environment variables. It's now an environment property because Docker Compose grabbed them all in from the env file, put them over here. And then also, all sorts of different variable interpolation has occurred. You can see the long form syntax here for volumes. Yeah, there's all sorts of different things that Compose is doing under the hood. And, when you're trying to debug something, it's super nice just to be able to see basically what you see is what you get. This is what Docker Compose is going to be parsing. So if you see this output and something doesn't look right, maybe the wrong environment variable is here because maybe you did define both environment and environment file, and one of them is winning, basically environment's going to overwrite environment file. Yeah, these are things that you can do to help check that. Now, of course, there's many other different tools that have previewing systems. Let us know in the comments below your favorite one. But another one that comes to mind here is Terraform. So Terraform is a useful tool for provisioning resources typically, but not always on the cloud. For example, DigitalOcean or AWS or GCP or, wherever you happen to be there. And actually, let's see if I have some example here. I'm not going to be able to run some Terraform commands here, but if we take a look here, because I did do a video in the past around this, but yeah, we're not going to go deep diving into Terraform, don't worry. But I just want to show you sure, let's go and take a look at this one. But yeah, the idea here is you define your infrastructure as code, and then you run this against your infrastructure, and it's going to do the thing. So in this case, it's going to be creating a local kind cluster. But you can imagine on AWS or DigitalOcean, maybe you're making a server, maybe you're making a DNS entry, maybe you're making a load balancer, whatever it happens to be. And it's really nice to have this defined in code. You can check it in, you can have it get peer reviewed, etc. But yeah, Terraform has these commands that you run that then get configured to run against your infrastructure that could be in production or staging or whatever server or whatever environment that happens to be. And Terraform has this idea of a plan command and an apply command. So the apply command is actually going to run it against your infrastructure. And the plan command is going to, parse all this here and give you a result in the terminal that is going to show you what it's going to do. Now, anybody who's used Terraform in the past knows that plan and apply sometimes give slightly different results because there are things that can only really be determined at runtime when you really apply it. But for 85, 90% of the cases there, being able to see the plan ahead of time is super nice. And of course, apply will show you it ahead of time. You just have to agree to apply it at the end by hitting yes. But yeah, it's really nice just to review whatever's going to change because, these are the type of things where, if you run this against the wrong environment, maybe you run it against your production environment. When you think you're in a pre-prod environment, suddenly you just delete your production database or maybe a Kubernetes cluster or something like that. And it's really painful there. And having a plan there is going to let you see that before it actually happens, which is wildly important. So that's two examples of tools that have some type of preview, which is quite nice. Let's go to the tutorials here for dry run, I guess. Yeah, so next half of this video is just going to be focused on command line tools that you've probably used or maybe have used in your day-to-day when it comes to dry runs. So yeah, let's go over a couple of them here. So rsync is a really nice one. Rsync lets you transfer files from point A to point B, maybe from your drive on your main machine to an external drive as a backup. I've got a blog post about that I do, and I still use that today. Rsync is awesome there. And you can also use rsync to transfer files between two different machines, maybe from machine A to machine B, things like that. But yeah, rsync is awesome because let's say you have a directory or multiple directories of stuff, imagine like a backup scenario. And the benefit of using something like rsync is that, yeah, it can incrementally send only the files that are different. For example, if you've got 1,000 files in a directory and you just add one new file, but you still want to transfer that whole directory, rsync is only going to transfer that one file over instead of all the files there like SCP would. So yeah, super handy tool here. But yeah, if we take a look here at its help menu for I guess we can just maybe do grepping for dry. There is a dry run flag here. Yeah, I'm not going to be running rsync. I don't really have anything to run it against. But yeah, in any case here, you just run this dry run, you just add this dry run flag here. And instead of it actually doing the transfer, it's just going to list out all the different files that it would have done if dry run wasn't there. So this is actually pretty nice to see what's going to be transferred over the wire. But yeah, if you use rsync with something like the delete flag, which I actually do for my backups, this is really nice to have dry run before you do the delete, just to make sure you're actually getting rid of the files that you want to get rid of, because maybe you do want to keep them. But anyways, yeah, when it comes to this delete flag, let's say the backup scenario, you've got your main computer, and then you also have maybe like an external drive or something like that. When you have the delete flag set, and you're going to rsync, let's say, your directories from your main computer to that backup drive, it is going to go ahead and delete files on that backup drive that don't match what's on your main computer there. And yeah, that's just kind of nice, because you got to figure like, okay, on your main machine, if you're deleting some files, you probably want them gone forever. So when on your backup, you want those files to be deleted as well, because you don't want to have them lingering around, because otherwise files will never get deleted. Now, you can make a case not deleting the files is like sort of the reason why you might want to backup, because if you deleted a file locally and then you ran your backup script, you wouldn't necessarily want those deleted on the remote or your external drive as well. So yeah, that's why in my backup script, I actually keep this delete flag as something I need to opt in. Like I'm not going to run this here because it's going to show a whole bunch of files, but like I'll typically run something like this where, when I'm ready to actually do that syncing over and deleting the files, I'll do delete. But you can also do dry run here to see what it's going to delete beforehand. But yeah, that's how I use that together to have that use case there. Another use case is system package managers. For example, I'm running Arch here in WSL2, but yeah, it's got some really nice config command here called check updates. And this is like just a dry run literally. So this will just go before you go and update all of your different packages here. It's going to see which packages that need to be updated and show you the before and after on which versions you would get there. Likewise, if you're using something like Debian or Ubuntu and you're trying to do like an apt get install or an upgrade, both of them have dry run flags. I can actually show that, I guess, like if I just maybe run Ubuntu in a Docker container. But I kind of like the Arch setup better because it's like a dedicated tool to showing you what's about to happen. And by the way, you might be thinking like yeah, these package managers typically, like you have to hit Y before you would actually go and do the update. But then, maybe out of habit, you actually just hit Y just because that's what your brain does 99 out of 100 times. Or maybe you have something in your environment, like an environment variable or a config file, that's like auto-approving those things. I don't know. I find, using a dedicated flag or tool in this case is a nice like separation of concerns. It's an extra level of defense there just to make sure you're doing what you're doing. Like, yeah, we just want to have the dry run. It helps me sleep better a little bit at night. So yeah, let's show a very quick example here, maybe using apt. So let's see, we can do Docker container run, IT. I'm just going to grab maybe the latest stable version of Debian. That sounds pretty good. And then it's probably going to put me into a bash prompt by default. But just in case not, let's just do that. Maybe it's going to put you in like, just regular shell, but I want a little bit of autocomplete here. This will take a second here, I guess. I probably could have grabbed the slim slag as well. Whatever, not important here. This is just grabbing the latest one. But yeah, in any case here, if we did something like an apt get update first, this doesn't have a dry run flag because it's just updating your package list here. But let's just do an upgrade and then do a dry run here and just see what happens. So maybe there will be some packages. Well, it's funny enough, like this is already up to date, so there's nothing to show here. Let's see, do I have anything that is less up to date? So I think I have a Docker Ubuntu Ansible image somewhere. Do I have that locally? Sweet, okay. And I know this one probably isn't up to date. So if we do apt-get upgrade dry run, this maybe will have some packages. Oh, I need to do an update first. Sure, okay. Let's go full screen for a sec. Yep, there we go. And we'll just rerun this one. I'm sure this will show some diff here just because, yeah, there's packages that need to be installed. So what's really nice about this is, you can see the dry run flag was added up here. And now it's going to be like, okay, cool. Like, these are the following packages that will be upgraded. And it's going to show you like, yeah, this is where they are. Here's like the before and after and all sorts of nice things there. Now, what I was mentioning about before, and by the way, that's like a whole system upgrade here. You can do this for install as well. But, if you were to do something like this with no dry run, then like, yeah, by default, you're going to have to hit Y to continue. But again, maybe you just hit Y instead of N by accident, or it's like pre-configured to auto approve that. But here you can see you're not even getting the exact amount of details that you would before. But in any case here, yeah, dry run, super nice and very nice to have. So let's get out of here and go back to my normal system here. What's another example? So another interesting one is like, well, what if the tool doesn't have like a built-in dry run capability? You can still kind of get creative to combine some tools together to do this. For example, when it comes to sed, what can we do? We can maybe echo a file called hello to, I don't know, like a greeting file or something like this. And now if we diff this greeting file, then the diff here is going to be empty, right? Because there's like nothing changed. It's literally the same file being output. But let's say that you want to maybe use sed here to do some type of find and replace. For example, maybe we want to change this to be hi globally for this greeting file here. And there's only one instance of it, so I guess a G isn't necessary, whatever. But, we can see, all right, well, kind of if you just run sed by itself with no other tools, then it will show you what it's going to do before it actually happens. Because you can imagine, if you're using the GNU version of sed, at least you can like do an inline edit here to replace this actual file. And this is a dangerous action, right? Just doing that replacement there, because maybe, you don't want to do that without seeing the results, because maybe you have something more complicated here, like a regular expression instead of like a very simple string replacement here in a one-line file. So what you could do here in this case, maybe if it's a little bit more complicated, is instead of just running sed like this, because of course with one line it's super easy to see that as a human, you can use diff here to help you out, to show you the difference of what's going to change. So if we go here and just, let's see, we can use this type of syntax here, where we're going to run a little subshell here. Let's just echo, I don't know, hello here, and then we'll do the same thing here as well. So we'll do echo hello. This should also show no diff because we're diffing the same content here. But here in this case, we're just piping into sed, why not? And then we'll say sed, let's do this. Let's replace hello with hi. And then we can do this, and that should be good with the G there or whatever. But now we can actually see a nice little diff showing us that there is, hey, by the way, we're going to be replacing hello with hi. And you can imagine in a really big file with a complicated regular expression where, maybe you're going to have like 168 changes there, just outputting sed's result there isn't super helpful. I mean, it is, right? But seeing the diff of it, oh man, that's really helpful here because now you can see exactly what's going to change. So that's one example there. Another interesting one, I guess, is like if you're going to be deleting files. So, you can do an RMRF and then like whatever, patterns that you want to do here. But that's also pretty scary. And at least RMRF, you have to hit Y to accept that, but it's not really going to show you all the different files that change there. And of course, you can always add, the interactive flag. But if you're trying to delete a whole bunch of different files in that pattern, like maybe there's like, 70 of them, like I don't want to have to hit Y to all 70 of them one at a time. Plus, it's also doing like the destructive actions like one at a time as I do it. So if I wanted to like back out of that midway, I've already done like 35 of them and hit Y to it, but I don't want to do it for the rest. Like those 35 are already gone because I deleted them. So yeah, I don't know, there's not really a dry run flag for RM itself, but you can use find instead. So like, for example, yeah, there's really nothing here. So let's RM that greeting file. What could we do? Let's make there a couple of directories. Sure, ABC. And then we'll just touch, I don't know, cool, like here. And then we'll also maybe in the B directory, we'll also make another like cool B, and then maybe, well, I guess that's all I really need here. So if we take a look here at the outputs of things, we got a couple of different files and a couple of different directories. So what we could do here is we can use something like find, and we can say maybe just find in this directory. What are we going to do? Type files. So then we can see like, okay, cool. There's the two files that we created, literally cool and cool B. And, let's say that we want to maybe delete these. Well, you could do -delete here, which would delete these files. But yeah, that's a scary part. But you can just run this like this and then see exactly what's going to happen. Now, you can do something more advanced here. Like this isn't going to return anything, I don't think. Well, do we need to quote this? I always forget. I think so. Because I always forget the different things what find. But in any case here, that's not going to return anything, right? Because we don't have any files named hello. But if we do have, let's say, maybe we'll just go with L, because this ends with L and this also has LB. Will this work? Yeah, that works. But then we should only get one here. Yeah. So again, like you can imagine like going through trying to like understand what these different properties are doing here or different filters that you want to do. You can now see the exact output of the files it's going to operate on. And when you're ready to pull the trigger, then you can do something like a delete here. And that's only going to delete that cool file. But if we do something like this again, we'll see the cool B file still exists. So we got what we want, some value out of there. So with that said, yeah, I would say if you are developing tools, please include some type of dry run or preview capability. It really does help a lot. Also, let us know in the comments below some of your favorite combos to do some dry runs or previewing with some tools that weren't mentioned here, or maybe other interesting ways that you've used these tools to get different types of information out. With that said, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.